in fulfillment of Article 155, Part 1 of the Constitution, and on behalf of His Excellency the President, I present to Parliament and to the people of Uganda the budget for financial year 2025-26 as approved by Parliament. Madam Speaker, in this speech, I will, 1, provide accountability to the people of Uganda on the performance of the commitments made by the NRM government for the first half of the Uganda Vision 2040. 2, present the recent performance of the economy and outlook. 3, account to the people of Uganda on the commitments that government made for financial 24-25 that is coming to an end in a few days, and the private areas of the budget for financial year 25-26. 4, highlight the financing strategy of the financial year 25-26 budget. Now, accountability of the performance of the commitments made by the NRM government for the first half of Uganda Vision 2040. Madam Speaker, let me first congratulate His Excellency the President on his leadership that has built a resilient, stable, transformative, and competitive economy that is attractive to investors. Uganda is among the fastest growing economies in the world and is projected to become the fastest growing by 2031 according to the Harvard Growth Club. This is despite the various domestic, regional, and global shocks that have impacted us in the recent years. The growth is on account of a unique economic ideology championed by His Excellency the President, which is built on the 4 principles of socio-economic transformation, patriotism, Pan-Africanism, and democracy. Madam Speaker, the first half of Uganda Vision 2024 started in 2010 with implementation of the first 5-year National Development Plan, and thereafter NDP 2 and NDP 3, which ends this financial year. The initial years of the NRM government before 2010, we dedicated to restoring sustainable peace, recovering and stabilizing a broken economy, addressing extreme poverty, and implementing reforms that liberalized the economy and created an environment for private sector to flourish. We are now in the phase of socio-economic transformation to facilitate wealth creation and prosperity. Your Excellency, I thank and commend you for this. Madam Speaker, the budget for financial year 2025-26 will conclude the billion by 2040 from US dollar 61.3 billion estimated this financial year 24-25. Madam Speaker, over the accountability period, government has undertaken targeted investments that have built a firm foundation and strengthened the resilience of our economy. I wish to highlight the following achievements. 1, total peace, security of person and property, political stability have been the foundation upon which sustained high economic growth and wealth creation to be built. 2, the economy more than tripled to shillings 226.3 trillion Uganda shillings, equivalent to US dollars 61.3 billion this financial year 24-25. from shillings 64.8 trillion, equivalent to US dollars 27.9 billion in financial 2010-2011. In March 2024, Uganda met the criteria for graduation from the category of least developed countries. Let me repeat this. In March 2024, Uganda met the criteria for graduation from the category of least developed countries. 4, life expectancy has improved to 68.2 years in financial 23-24 from 63.3 years in 2010-11 and from 50.4 years in 2002. This has been partly driven by improvements in access to health services, massive immunization campaigns that reduce disease prevalence and child mortality. 5, the population living within a 5-kilometer radius of a health facility is now 91% from about 8% in financial 2010-2011. And 81% of parishes now have government-aided schools. 6, poverty has decreased by 16.1% in financial 2020-23-24 from 24.5% in financial 2010-2011. In addition, Madam Speaker, persons in the subsistence economy reduced to 33% in financial year 23-24 from 69% in financial year 2010-2011. Madam Speaker, Uganda is becoming a more equal society. The results of the National Household Survey released by the Uganda Bureau of Statistics last month show that income inequality has declined significantly in the past 4 years. The Gini coefficient, which is a statistical measure used to determine the extent of income inequality within a population, has reduced to 36% from 41% in 2020. Speaker, Ugandans can now connect to all borders on tarmac and reach all parts of the country, east, west, south, north, by tarmac or improved mudam roads. 9. Installed electricity generation capacity increased fourfold to 2,051 megawatts in financial year 23-24 from 595 megawatts in financial year 2010-2011. Consequently, the proportion of the population with access to electricity increased fivefold to 57% in financial year 23-24 from 11% in financial year 2011. The percentage of the population subscribed to the internet rose to 53% in 2022 from 1.8% in 2010, and the national ICT backbone infrastructure extended to 4,300 kilometers in financial year 22-23 from 1,380 kilometers in financial year 2010-2011. The economy has diversified from the traditional 3 C's, which are coffee, cotton, copper, and 3 T's, which are tobacco, tea, and tourism, to a more sophisticated economy. For example, Uganda has added 31 new products to its export basket in the last 15 years, including light manufactured products such as steel, processed food, cement, pharmaceuticals, dairy products, ceramics, and clothes. The number of manufacturing units factories of various sizes has increased by about 18,000 from 31,757 in 2010-2011 to 50,000 in financial year 2023-24. Significantly, Madam Speaker, Uganda's economy has been able to achieve all these milestones on account of the right strategy of the NRM government. Let me repeat. Madam Speaker, Uganda's economy has been able to achieve all these milestones on account of the right strategy of the NRM government. Madam Speaker, since the necessary foundation has already been established by intentionally prioritizing investments in infrastructure, the speed of economic transformation is destined to be faster in the medium term. Madam Speaker, the budget for next financial year and over the medium term is focused on people and wealth creation. Consequently, the theme of the next financial year 25-26 remains full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, and digital transformation and market access. Current recent economic performance and outlook. Madam Speaker, our economy has strengthened its resilience to domestic and external shocks and is estimated to grow by 6.3% this financial year 24-25. This is after recording growth of 8.6% in the third quarter of this financial year. Last financial year 23-24, the economy grew by 6.1%. In nominal terms, the size of the economy is estimated at shillings 226.3 trillion, equivalent to US dollars 61.3 billion in financial year 24-25, rising from shillings 203.7 trillion, equivalent to US dollars 53.9 billion in financial year 23-24. This is equivalent to US dollars 174.2 billion in purchasing power parity terms. My economists will tell you what that means. 12, Madam Speaker, this growth has broad-based, including this growth was broad-based, including in agriculture, industry, and services like ICT. This was on account of continued implementation of government interventions and sound fiscal and monetary policies that have supported private sector investment. Madam Speaker, the impressive economic performance has been driven by His Excellency the President's commitment and deliberate investment in wealth creation initiatives. I thank His Excellency the President for setting the tone and for providing leadership and direction. Madam Speaker, government has invested over shillings 9 trillion in key wealth creation initiatives over the last 10 years. These include Uganda Development Bank, 4.45 trillion, the Parish Development Model, shillings 3.3 trillion by end of financial year 24-25. Emyoga, shillings 553 billion. The Youth Livelihood Program, shillings 207.95 billion. The Small Business Recovery Fund, shillings 100 billion. The Agricultural Credit Facility, shillings 495 billion. The Youth Venture Capital Fund, shillings 12.5 billion. Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, shillings 168 billion. The Invite Project, shillings 800 billion. The Grow Project, shillings 824 billion. And Uganda Development Corporation, 1.2 trillion, among others. Madam Speaker, economy is expected to grow faster by at least 7% next financial year, 25-26, and to double digits at the onset of oil and gas production. The size of the economy is projected to expand to shillings 254.2 trillion, equivalent to US dollars 66.1 billion in financial year 25-26. This will translate into a higher GDP per capita of US dollars 1,000. Let me repeat this. This will translate into a higher GDP per capita of US dollars 1,324 next financial year, compared to US dollars 1,263 GDP estimated for this financial year ending the 30th June this year. Inflation. Madam Speaker, inflation for the year ending May 2025, the speed at which prices of goods and services rose slowed to 3.4% compared to 4.1% in the same period of the year ago. The slower pace of the increase in domestic prices was due to good export performance and FDI inflows, which led to a stable shilling, increased food production driven by good weather and the parish development model, and the close coordination of the fiscal and monetary policies. In addition, a reduction in the global prices of petroleum products also contributed to the lower prices. The country has been able to benefit from these lower global prices because of the direct importation of petroleum products by the Uganda National Oil Company, UNOC, which removed middlemen in the petroleum supply chain. Therefore, inflation is expected to remain below the policy target of 5% per annum. Now, exchange rates. Madam Speaker, despite global uncertainties, the Uganda shilling has been among the few most stable currencies in Africa. Can I repeat? Madam Speaker, despite global uncertainties, the Uganda shilling has been among the few most stable currencies in Africa. The shilling appreciated by 4% year on year in April 2025 compared to the same month in 2024. Uganda's shilling has been ranked the most stable currency in Africa, according to the International Financial Statistics Division of the IMF. This resilience is due to good export performance, strong inflows of foreign direct investment, and tourism receipts. Now, interest rates. Madam Speaker, the price of total domestic economic output in financial 24-25. External sector development. Madam Speaker, total exports of goods and services for the 12 months of March 2025 is US dollars 11.8 billion from US dollars 9.56 billion for the same period in year 2024. Of this, exports of goods were US dollars 9.3 billion for the same period, up from 7.3 billion in March 2024, representing growth of 26%. The top exports include gold, US dollar 3.698 billion, coffee, US dollars 1.83 billion, which alone had an annual average growth of 84.9%. Industrial products, 626.5 US dollars million, cocoa beans, US dollars 410.8 million, milk products, US dollars 285 million, base metals and products, US dollars 230.6 million, sugar, US dollars 186.5 million, fish and fish products, US dollars 107.7 million, maize, US dollars 86.37 million, and other agricultural products like tea, tobacco, cotton, beans, fruits, vegetables, flowers, simsim, sesame, nuts, vanilla, and other grains, giving US dollars 575.9 million. Madam Speaker, this financial year, for the first time in the history of Uganda, coffee exports earnings not only exceeded the $1 billion mark, but are on track to double to US dollars 2 billion per year. The country more than a century to reach US dollars 1 billion earnings per annum from coffee. It has taken just 1 year to double these earnings. This is an example of the kind of economic leap envisioned under the 10-fold growth strategy. I therefore implore Ugandans to grow more coffee and, most importantly, add value to our coffee before we export it for higher earnings. Madam Speaker, for the year ending March 2025, the Middle East was Uganda's top export destination, followed by the East African Community, Asia, and the European Union. Uganda recorded large trade surpluses with the Middle East worth US dollars 186.3 million, and the European Union worth US dollars 117.7 million. The main export commodities to these markets were coffee, industrial, and mineral products. Madam Speaker, I wish to note that His Excellency the President, Madam Speaker, I wish to note that His Excellency the President's message and deliberate strategy of increasing the share of manufactured exports in total exports has started producing positive results. New research by the Harvard Economic Growth Lab shows that Uganda has become more complex for its level of income. This means that while earnings from traditional exports like coffee are significantly increasing, their contribution to the total export basket is declining. New products that require more advanced production technology than that expected for our level of income are contributing an increasing share of our total exports. According to the study, in the last 15 years, Uganda added 31 new products to its export basket. Among these are ICT equipment, serums and vaccines, medicines, new pneumatic tires, batteries, gas turbines, electric integrated circuits, transmission apparatus for radio, telephone and TV, measuring instruments and instruments for physical and chemical analysis, and light manufactured products such as steel, processed food, cement, pharmaceuticals, dairy products, ceramics, and cloth. The country also has an opportunity of harnessing the production of 50 new complex products, which are referred to as strategic bets. Tourism and foreign direct investment. Madam Speaker, tourism earnings have grown by 13.1% to US dollars 1.52 billion in 12 months to March 2025 from US dollars 1.36 billion during the same period in 2024. This impressive growth is attributed to the sustainable peace, increased competitiveness of Uganda's tourism industry, and government investment in strategic tourism infrastructure, including Uganda Airlines, remittances from Ugandans living and working abroad were US dollars 1.4 billion 12 months to March 2025, compared to US dollars 1.33 billion in the same period in 2024. Madam Speaker, Uganda has maintained its top ranking as one of the best investment destinations in Africa. Let me repeat this. Madam Speaker, Uganda has maintained its top ranking as one of the best investment destinations in Africa. Foreign direct investments were worth US dollar 3.4 billion in 12 months to March 2025. The report of this financial year to Parliament in line with the law. In this section, I provide the highlights of what government has achieved this financial year to date. Madam Speaker, this included additional financing of shillings 100 billion for essential medicines, shillings 116.8 billion for RRVs, shillings 2.9 billion for anti-malaria medicines, shillings 17.8 billion for immunization supplies, and shillings 52.3 billion for laboratory supplies, and shillings 2.1 billion for anti-TB drugs. Government continued to improve healthcare infrastructure and equipment. For example, we completed, equipped, and commissioned 3 regional blood banks in Hoima, Arua, and Soroti, operationalized 16 high-capacity oxygen plants across key regional referral hospitals, continued infrastructure development and equipping of the 2 specialized centers for cancer and cardiovascular care, infrastructure development of Rubowa Specialized Hospital is now at 68% progress, and training of the specialists is ongoing. Constructed new maternal wards and the staff houses in the health center 2s that are being upgraded to health center 3s, distributed 20 digital X-ray machines to general hospitals, and installed CT scans in 14 out of 16 regional referral hospitals. Government implemented interventions for preventive health care, for disease prevention and promotion of healthy lifestyles. For example, trained and deployed community health extension workers across the country to deliver essential health education on hygiene and sanitation, nutrition and disease prevention, and to support routine immunization efforts. undertook residual spraying in 13 districts, which protected the lives of 2.7 billion people and 560,000 households against malaria, and introduced the malaria vaccine into the extended program on immunization targeting children under 5 years of age. He improved the digitization of healthcare services by extending connectivity of the electronic medical code system in 4 national referral hospitals and 16 regional referral hospitals. This has improved patient record management, drug dispensing, and monitoring the attendance of health workers. Strengthened the national ambulance and emergency care system by providing additional ambulances to improve the national emergency response and referral system. Madam Speaker, to further improve the health of Ugandans, a total of shillings 5.87 trillion has been provided in next financial year 25-26. The priority intervention will include 1, functionalizing health centers, 4, 2, strengthening primary health care and community health services, 3, scale up of national e-health infrastructure, 4, promotion of nutrition and education and reproductive health, 5, continued deployment of community health extension workers, 6, strengthening the national ambulance and emergency referral system, and 7, construction of specialized health facilities for cancer and cardiovascular care. Now, education. Madam Speaker, the following milestones have been achieved in the education sector. 1, provided access. In addition, 4,000 learners benefited from government sponsorship joining public universities. 3, a total of 166 seed schools have been constructed under the UGFID program. 4, in preparation for CHAN and ACFON 27, government has so far spent shillings 496.8 billion for the construction of Hoima and Akibua Stadia, as well as the associated training facilities across the country. Government will spend a total of shillings 1.3 trillion to get these facilities completed. In addition, Mandela National Stadium has been upgraded, and government commissioned the National High Altitude Training Center, Teriyet, in Kapchorwa. In order to improve compliance with quality standards, government digitalized school inspections in all public schools and certificate awarding technical, vocational, education and training institutions. To improve the qualifications and skills of primary school teachers to meet the new minimum education requirement of degree level, government has established the Uganda National Institute for Teacher Education, UNITE. So far, UNITE has enrolled 1,000 students across 5 campuses and has been supported to undertake staff recruitment and take over the operations of 23 primary teachers' colleges to upgrade certificate teachers to diploma level. Rolled out the abridged A-level curriculum to implement the competence-based curriculum for A-level. A total of 357 120 learners successfully completed the 4-year cycle under the new lower secondary educational curriculum and are transitioning to the new A-level curriculum. implemented the TVET reform to increase industry participation in TVET training and delivery. A new TVET council, sector skills council, and secretariat have been established with representation from various sectors. Madam Speaker, next financial year, I have provided 5.04 trillion for priority interventions, which include: 1, continuing to provide free education to Ugandans under UPE, USE, and universal post-O-level education and training. 2, providing sponsorship and student loans for higher education. 3, rehabilitation of 120 traditional secondary schools and 31 special need primary schools. 4, construction of 106 new seed schools and expansion of 61 existing secondary schools. 5, recruitment of more teachers and non-teaching staff. 6, strict enforcement of teachers and learners inspection across the country using an electronic system. 7, providing textbooks and instructional materials to improve the textbook to student ratio to 1.13 from the current 1 to 1.5. Operationalization of Bunyoro and Busoga universities, and completion of the ongoing construction of stadia and training facilities ahead of CHAN and AFCON 27, as I've said before. Madam Speaker, to keep our senior citizens healthy and to actively participate in socio-economic activities, government has divided shillings 811 billion, benefiting 702 older persons across the country under the social assistance grants for the elderly program, SAGE. In addition, 1,741 older persons group enterprises have been funded with government grants worth 5.5 billion, benefiting 11,644 older persons under the Special Enterprise Grant for Older Persons Program, SEGOP. Other social protection interventions which government has supported include the following: Youth Livelihood Program, a total of 24,228 youth enterprises have been funded to the tune of 191.336 billion, benefiting 274,211 youth.
271,211. Not
I have read it wrong. Let me repeat. 271,211 youth. The enterprises are in agriculture, 30%, trade, 38%, trade, 32%, other services, 19%, and others, 11%. Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, WEP. Government has financed 21,948 women group enterprises, benefiting 235 million, 114 women. National Special Grant for Persons with Disability to address high vulnerability and poverty levels among persons with disability. Government has supported 8,107 enterprises, benefiting to 50,900 person.
59,901.
59,901 persons with disabilities. Madam Speaker, I have provided an additional shillings 420 and 400 and 404.9 billion for social protection next financial year 2025-26. Water, sanitation, and environmental protection. Madam Speaker, to improve the quality of life, government continues to invest in the provision of safe water, improve sanitation, and ensure protection of the environment. These include the following. 1. Villages in Uganda with at least one safe water source have remarkably increased to 8 out of every 10 villages. Nationwide, 57,951 villages out of 71,225 have been served with a safe water source. 2. Completed construction of 259 medium and large solar-powered water supply and sanitation systems and gravity flow schemes across the country. 3. Construction of 42 large solar-powered water supply systems is ongoing in Agago, Yumbe, Amudat, Kabong, Kasese, Kakumiro, Sembabule, Kisoro, Rubanda, Bulambuli, Kyenkwanzi, Mubende, Kyegegwa, Buyende, Nakaseke, Namayingo, Rakai, and Buvuma. With regard to clean water, construction of piped town water supply systems is ongoing in 32 towns. These include Namasale, Kakingoro, Kamuli, Ngoma Town, Lunya, Karogo, Phase 2, Ishaka, Mobilizing, Nyakashaka, Bukumi, Kanapa, and Odongei. Construction is also ongoing in Parabekar, Rhino Camp, Aradufile, Lubeli Refugee Settlement, Bulori, Nyansheke, Busale, Kibuzi, and expansion in 2 towns of Kiboga and Zigoti. Other beneficial towns are Lamuo, Lacheskot, Ir, Lorenga Kora, Chora, Manafwa, Butaleja Busorwe, Terinyi, Kibuku, Kadama, Budaka, Kaliro, Namungarwe, Rukungiri, and Obongi. Construction of various water supply systems in 26 districts is at varying levels of physical progress. These include Manafwa Town Council and installation of solar packages that is ongoing in Loslang, Kasawo, Phase 1, Kaburawizi, Phase 1, Bukumi, Bulangira, and Kievando, Kasimbi, and Busale Town. Also, government is starting the development of new piped water supply systems in Rwanda, Kabale, Albetong, Nakasongola, Kamuli districts, among others. Madam Speaker, I have provided an additional shilling 366.1 billion next financial year for water resource management, climate change mitigation, natural resources, and environment. The priority interventions include construction of water supply infrastructure to increase service in the underserved communities in rural, urban, and refugee settlements, increasing rehabilitation and expansion of existing water, sanitation, and hygiene infrastructure, and increasing forest and wetland cover. Madam Speaker, overall, I have allocated a total of shillings 11.44 trillion next financial year towards investing in the people of Uganda through health, education, social protection, and water and sanitation. Now, wealth creation programs. Madam Speaker, wealth creation programs have proved effective in integrating lower-income Ugandans into the economy. As already reported, poverty and inequality have reduced thanks to the following opportunity equalizing initiatives that government has implemented. Parish development model. Madam Speaker, by 30th June this year, a total of shillings 3.3 trillion will have been transferred to 10,589 parishes across the country to transform the household still in subsistence to join the money economy. Each parish gets shillings 100,000 per year. So far, the PDM funds have reached 2.63 million beneficiaries in all districts and parishes. The beneficiaries have invested 45% of the money in cash and food crops such as maize, cassava, onions, bananas, and Irish potatoes, 36% in livestock such as piggery, goats, beef cattle, dairy cattle, and sheep, 20% in poultry, and 6% in other enterprises. These investments are changing the lives of Ugandans by boosting household incomes, enhancing food security, and creating employment opportunities at local level countrywide. Madam Speaker, PDM operations have been fully digitized to ensure secure and smooth flow of the government grants directly from the National Treasury to the beneficiaries. Government using the National Identification Number, NIN, and the PDM information system to identify the beneficiaries, the Wendy application to send the money, and the Zaidi application to monitor and ensure that the money goes to the right beneficiaries and that they are using it to finance the right enterprises. This has enhanced efficiency and convenience in access and helped to reduce corruption in the PDM operations. Effective next year, every parish chief will make use of the PDMs to prepare an annual report on the state of their parish economy and asset register, the SPIA report. This report will enable tracking of progress towards full monetization of the economy for every parish. Madam Speaker, I have provided an additional 1.059 trillion next financial year 25-26 for further capitalization of the PDM. This will avail an additional shillings 100 million per parish for households that have not yet benefited from the PDM. Government has also provided money to pay for the bank charges to ensure that beneficiaries receive the full amount of shillings 1 million each. Government is also providing a grant of 500,000 shillings for persons with disability over and above the loan of 1 million to cater for the additional access requirements. Madam Speaker, in order to add value to and guarantee markets for PDM outputs, government has stepped up investment in agro-industry through vertical and horizontal value addition. This is targeting production of higher value multi-input products such as nutritional foods, baby foods that use several products like milk, eggs, and maize, and fruits and vegetables. Now, agricultural credit facility. Madam Speaker, government has injected a total of shillings 413.4 billion in the SEF since its establishment in 2010. In partnership with participating financial institutions that match the government contribution, this facility has so far provided over 1 trillion in low-interest loans by the end of March 2025 to support agricultural productivity, commercial farming, and agricultural value addition. The SF has so far supported 14,336 beneficiaries, of whom 3,531 are smallholder farmers. The loans have financed the following: grain trading, shillings 431.4 billion, 43%. On farm activities, shillings 312.8 billion, 32%. Agro-processing, 166.8 billion, 16%. And post-harvest management, shillings 89 billion, which is 9%. Madam Speaker, I have provided additional capital for the SEF of shillings 50 billion next financial year 25-26. This is in addition to the agricultural insurance that benefits all farmers, including PDM beneficiaries. Uganda Development Bank. Madam Speaker, government has cumulatively capitalized the UDB to the tune of shillings 1.5 trillion to support industrialization, agricultural commercialization, and acquisition of appropriate technologies to increase productivity. UDB has so far achieved the following. 1. UDB has provided shillings 2.45 trillion to 607 businesses engaged in commercial agriculture, agricultural value addition, manufacturing, tourism, hospitality, education, health services, creatives, and construction industry, and as at the end of December 2024. 2. Businesses supported by UDB have created 55,553 jobs, generated out of value of shillings 23 trillion, contributed shillings 944.2 billion in taxes, generated an equivalent of shillings 3.3 trillion in forex earnings, and shillings 3.15 trillion in profits for the private sector businesses supported. UDB has implemented special programs targeting small and medium enterprises and youth and women-owned businesses engaged in wealth creation. This has been done through provision of business development and incubation services. In order to ease access, UDB is opening up regional offices and has supported wealth creation enterprises in 96 districts across all the sub-regions. Madam Speaker, I have now provided an additional shillings 1 trillion for UDB next financial year. We turn to Emyoga. Madam Speaker, in order to boost incomes of Ugandans engaged in specialized trades, Emyoga, particularly in urban and peri-urban centers, government has so far provided a total of shillings 660 billion. This has benefited a total of 2.4 million Ugandans in creating 471,000 jobs and kick-starting a new local economy in value-added enterprise such as winemaking, carpentry, coffee value addition, mental metal fabrication, tailoring, artisanal products, mechanics, women in markets, restaurants, and services like hair and beauty salons and transport, among others. Madam Speaker, I am providing an additional 100 billion Uganda shillings next financial year to support more Emyoga enterprises as off-takers of PDM outposts. Following enactment of new TVET Act, government will support certification and issuance of practicing permits to competent practitioners benefiting from the Emyoga program. Small Business Recovery Fund, Madam Speaker. This fund was established to support small businesses which were affected by COVID-19 to recover with an initial capital of 100 million shillings, to be matched by commercial banks and other financial institutions. The funding from the SBRF has enabled 3,496 micro, small, and medium enterprises to recover from the effects of COVID-19, saving over 26,672 jobs in the sectors of trade and commerce, hospitality, and education and construction. Madam Speaker, in order to accelerate full monetization of the economy through various wealth creation programs, I have provided shillings 3.05 trillion next financial year, 2025/26. These funds are going to be passed.
2.3 trillion. Next
it is
financial.
shillings 3.05 trillion. These funds are going to be passed on to Ugandans in wealth creation through PDM, shillings 1.059 trillion, Emyoga, shillings 100 billion, UDB, shillings 1 trillion, Uganda Development Corporation, shillings 187.1 billion, and the Agricultural Credit Facility, shillings 50 billion. Others include GROW, generating growth opportunities and productive for women enterprise, 231.3 billion, Invite, investment for industrial transformation and empowerment, shillings 275.1 billion, presidential zonal industrial hubs and skilling initiatives, shillings 58.5 billion, to turn youth into manufacturers, and support to microfinance, shillings 48.5 billion. For industrialization, Madam Speaker, the interventions in agro-industrialization this financial year and next financial year have prioritized research, increase in productivity, commercialization, and value addition in agriculture. Madam Speaker, some of the key achievements in this financial year include: 1, research and genetics development of selected value chains. The National Animal Genetic Resource Center and the Data Bank has introduced superior animal genetic resources for breeding, multiplication, and distribution to farming households under PDM. NARO has completed the manufacturing facility for anti-tick vaccines at Nakisesa in Wakiso district with the capacity to produce over 20 million doses of the anti-tick vaccine per year. NARO has also developed agricultural technologies that increase productivity, such as water-saving cultivation technology, drought-resistant varieties, and integrated pest, disease, and weed control technologies, among others. Research in coffee by Nakori has contributed to increased national coffee production, productivity, and export earnings. Increasing agricultural production and productivity. The capacity of water for irrigation has increased to 54.76 million cubic meters. This is on account of government investment in small and large irrigation systems, including solar-powered irrigation. In particular, 7 large-scale irrigation schemes have been completed. These include Ngenge in Kwene District, Luengaju in Kabarole, Tochi in Oyam, Mobuktu in Kasese, Olwenyi in Kira, Lira, Doho 2 in Butareja, and Wadley in Pakwach. Another 3 irrigation schemes are currently under construction. These are Akomai in Bukedia District, Atari in Kweni Bulambuli District, and Namatala covering Budaka, Mbale, Butaleja districts. Madam Speaker, another 142 solar-powered irrigation and water supply schemes have been completed across the country. In addition, 157 solar-powered irrigation and water supply schemes are under construction. Furthermore, 4,300 micro-scale irrigation facilities were constructed in 135 districts across the country and have benefited smallholder farmers of less than 2.5 acres. Madam Speaker, in addition, government completed Useke Dam in Kabong and Ogunga Dam in Katakwi for livestock, irrigation, and fish farming. In addition, 5,251 small and medium-scale irrigation schemes were established in 135 districts. Madam Speaker, government established 5 zonal agricultural mechanization centers in Malere, Buama, Bungoko, Ogwata, and Sanga to support equipment access and tractor hire services, procured and distributed 260 assorted 4-wheeled tractors and implements to farmer groups in 60 districts countrywide, 750 power tillers, single axle tractor and implements, and 2 pieces of dredging equipment for water hines and weed control, and trained 2,150 youth and women as operators, artisans, mechanics for tractors and implements. Madam Speaker, beginning this financial year, government introduced the large-scale commercial farmer interest-free credit facility of shillings 175 billion. This facility will help to increase production and productivity for improved food security and export. The loan facility can be accessed through government-owned banks, namely Post Bank, Housing Finance Bank, and Pride Bank Limited. Agricultural value addition and marketing. NARU completed setting up an alpha-safe facility at Namulonge with the capacity to eliminate aflatoxin contamination in grains. The facility has capacity to clean 5 tons of produce per hour. This will save the country an estimated $38 million per year, which is lost in export rejections due to aflatoxins, and most importantly, save the lives of Ugandans. Madam Speaker, to add value to agricultural produce, government constructed 11 agro-processing and storage facilities to increase opportunities for value addition and access to higher value markets. These include Ruimi Rice Processing Facility in Bunyangabu, Kasina Maize Processing Facility in Kenjojo, Kigoyera Maize Processing Facility in Kenjojo, Itojo Maize and Rice Processing Facility in Ntoroko, Nombe Coffee Processing Facility in Ntoroko, Apara Oil Seed Processing Facility in Alabetong, Gatianga Coffee Processing Facility in Winyangabu, Akorinmonyin Rice Processing Facility in Katakwi, Kajamaka Rice Processing Facility in Kumi, Chikwata Coffee Processing Facility in Nakaseke, and Chiwoko Maize Processing Facility in Nakaseke again. Madam Speaker, government is strengthening partnerships with the private sector through Uganda Development Corporation to support local value addition and manufacturing in a wide range of agricultural value chains. These investments include Soroti Fruit Factory, Budadiri Arabic Coffee, Mbale Growers Tea Factory, Mabale Growers Tea Factory, Kayonza Growers Tea Factory, Bukona Agro Processors, Matia Kassaija Factory, and Yumbe Fruit Factory. Madam Speaker, as a part of the effort to increase access of Uganda's products to international markets, we dispatched the inaugural exports of coffee and milk to Serbia and Algeria, respectively. The milk exports to Algeria have potential to fetch Uganda export earnings worth $500 million. Madam Speaker, I have allocated a total of 1.86 trillion next financial year towards deepening agro-industrialization. These funds will support investments in 1, agricultural research, 2, agricultural inputs including fertilizers, 3, water for irrigation, 4, extension services, 5, agro-processing and value addition, 6, post-harvest handling and storage facilities, 7, inspection, surveillance, certification, enforcement of quality standards, and market access. Now we turn to tourism development. Madam Speaker, Uganda's tourism sector continued to recover with the tourist arrivals increasing by 7.7% to 1,000,037 in 2024 from 1.27 million in 2023. Similarly, tourism earnings grew by 26% to $1.28 billion in 2024, up from $1.02 billion in 2023. Madam Speaker, the following achievements were registered: promoted and marketed Uganda through International Explore Uganda promotion campaign in high-value market segments in USA, Canada, and the United Kingdom. As a result, the year-on-year growth of interest in Uganda by tourists is 33% for the United Kingdom, 19% for Canada, 5% for the USA. Additionally, through the theme, Uniquely Ours, we have promoted domestic tourism. As a result, domestic tourism in national parks increased by 15.7% in 2024, reaching 244,843 visitors. Continue to innovate and modernize tourism products to make them more competitive. This involved maintenance of 1,300 kilometers of rail tracks and roads in tourism-protected areas, increasing the cumulative coverage of electric fencing of 177 kilometers in Queen Elizabeth and Murchison Falls National Parks, continued construction of the pier and related infrastructure at the source of the Nile, continuing to upgrade the Uganda Museum and Namugongo Martyrs Shrines construction of 3,521 meters of climbing ladders and boardwalks on Wenzori Mountains to make hiking safer and fun, completion and commissioning of Kikorongo Ikweta Monument in Kasese, and the construction of works of Karamoja Museum, which is nearing completion. In a world-class convention facility in Munyonyo, this has promoted Uganda as one of the regional destinations for meetings, incentives, conferences, and exhibitions. Consequently, Uganda now ranks 7th in Africa in MICE tourism. Madam Speaker, I have allocated shillings 430 billion towards direct investment in tourism next financial year. This is in addition to about 2.2 trillion provided for another tourism support investments such as tourism roads, ICT, infrastructure in tourism areas, African Cup of Nations, AFCON infrastructure, and security strengthening in tourism areas. Madam Speaker, the focus next financial will be on 1, branding and marketing of Uganda as a tourism and investment destination. 2, infrastructure development in tourism sites. 3, construction of refreshment centers and highway sanitation facilities. 4, improving and enforcing hospitality standards and training. And 5, promoting health tourism by investment in specialized health facilities. Madam Speaker, government has also stepped up investment in missions abroad to promote economic and commercial diplomacy. Every mission is now tasked to bring investors and tourists and open up export markets. Mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas. Madam Speaker, the following achievements were registered this financial year. Government facilitated the establishment of 10 gold refineries, 4 cement manufacturing plants, and 1 tin processing plant, contributing to mineral processing and refining. In the oil and gas sector, the Telenga and Kingfisher oil projects are on track for first oil production in 2026. An agreement to construct 60,000 barrels per day oil refinery, which will kickstart the petroleum chemical industry, was signed between Alpha MBM from AIE and the Uganda National Oil Company. Once operations start, the oil and gas sector will contribute between $1 and 2.5 billion annually to the country's revenues. With regard to local content in the oil and gas industry, more Ugandan companies and individuals have benefited from contracts issued and jobs respectively. Out of 5,693 Tier 1 contracts amounting to a total of value of US dollars 5.4 billion awarded to date, 4,796 contracts, 64% were Ugandan companies.
84%.
84%, yes, I said that, Mama, were to Ugandan companies amounting to US dollars 2.25 billion. Also, US dollars 33.4 million, equivalent to shillings 121 billion, has been spent on goods and services consumed from the surrounding communities in Bunyoro. More than 14,000 Ugandans have been trained in various technical areas, and so far about 17,000 direct and 39,567 indirect jobs have been created. Kabalega International Airport is nearly complete, and over 700 kilometers of roads have been constructed in the Albertine region to support commercial production of oil and gas. Government is expediting the finalization of the 1,443-kilometer East African crude oil pipeline, EACOP, which is now 58% complete, with engineering works at 98% completion and procurement of the major equipment for the pipeline at 83%. Following INOX commencement of the bulk supply of petroleum products in August 2024, in supply and pricing. This has been realized due to elimination of the middlemen and speculative tendencies. As a result, Uganda currently saves up to $72.8 million annually on fuel imports. Madam Speaker, I have provided $875.8 billion next financial year for mineral-based industrial development, including oil and gas, for one, continued qualification of mineral resources, starting with iron ore, gold, and copper, and strengthening their tracking systems. Two, capitalization of the Uganda National Mining Company. Three, establishing mineral markets and buying centers to enable transparent mineral trading. Four, expediting finalization of the East African crude oil pipeline. And five, prioritizing of the construction of the oil refinery and refined products pipeline, among others. Science, technology, and innovation, including ICT and creative industry. Madam Speaker, STI, including ICT and creative arts, provide an important avenue for the country to develop high-tech exports and add new sources of growth and jobs. Madam Speaker, this financial year, the following milestones have been achieved in the development of knowledge economy. One, completed and operationalized the Kira vehicle plant in Jinja. The plant has an annual capacity of 2,500 vehicles. So far, 41 buses have been produced, out of which 29 are electric. The electric buses produced can run up to 500 kilometers when fully charged. The plant has signed a letter of intent to supply more than 3,700 electric buses to West Africa. The plant has signed a letter of intent to supply more than 3,700 electric buses to West Africa. Kira Motors has created 800 jobs and has potential to generate more than 14,000 direct and indirect productive jobs. Invested in vaccine development and commercialization, as well as innovation in therapeutics, diagnostics, and other healthcare tools. Government has cumulatively invested total of $274 billion in the thereby former manufacturing facility located at Matuga in Wakiso district. The facility is now licensed by the National Drug Authority and has started manufacturing generic drugs such as tablets, capsules, powders, non-antibiotic drugs, and antifungal drugs, among others. Madam Speaker, government is making progress in development of vaccines for the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever and Rift Valley virus. We also completed accreditation of the Alphasan vaccine manufacturing facility to produce anti-tick vaccines. Scientists at Makerere University developed a PCR kit which has been used to conduct more than 2 million tests at 50% of the cost of imported alternatives, saving the country $37 million. Guru University developed highly effective rapid testing kits for crop diseases for cassava and sweet potatoes. Madam Speaker, government has invested in a coffee factory in Itungam to fast-track local value addition to coffee. The factory will have 3 processing lines for roastery, freeze, dry, and spray dry technology to produce instant roast and ground coffee, respectively. The roastery line has started production and other processing lines are at 50% installation. The banana value addition facility in Bushenyi has started production. Oh, Katonda yebazibwe. The plant is producing several value-added products like banana flour used in bread, cakes, biscuits, and baby food. The plant is increasing automation and capacity to 140 metric tons from 14 metric tons. It has started penetrating the local and international markets with orders from South Korea, the Middle East, South Africa, Italy, and USA. Madam Speaker, with regard to ICT, government has continued to expand internet connectivity and digital infrastructure across the country. The geographical coverage of broadband internet connectivity stands at 72% of the country, covering 4,387 kilometers. Government has increased the digitization of service delivery to improve efficiency, promote transparency, and reduce bureaucracy. Madam Speaker, a total of 36 electronic services have been developed and rolled out. Some of these include online business registration system, electronic government procurement, and online passport, visa, national ID, and driving license application system. The Uganda driver licensing system, which was introduced in 2021, has reduced the turnaround time for processing driving licenses to 45 minutes in Kampala and 48 hours in upcountry stations from a period of 1 month. To support business process sourcing, government has licensed over 50 companies that have created over 10,000 jobs, mainly for the youth that provide online services internationally. Madam Speaker, with regard to the creative arts, government provided 10 billion to the creative arts industry. This was to support the artists to recover from the effects of COVID-19 and create a revolving fund to support younger talents to create wealth and jobs. Madam Speaker, I have provided shillings 835.98 billion for science, technology, and innovation, including ICT and the creative arts industry. Of this amount, 388.23 billion is for STI, shillings 381.75 billion is for ICT and digitalization, and shillings 66 billion for the creative arts. Madam Speaker, these funds will be utilized for 1, establishing a high-tech city to support development of technologies and innovations. 2, taking STI products to the market, especially Kira motor vehicles, coffee, day-by farmer, drugs, vaccines, and banana products. Additional investment in R&D and innovation, increasing coverage, reliability, and affordability of internet, enhancing digitization of government services and e-commerce, promoting BPO for job creation, acquiring a home for creative artists for their production and innovation, fast-tracking the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act to protect intellectual property and artistic works, and finally, further capitalization of the revolving fund for arts with an additional shillings 18 billion, bringing it to a total of shillings 23 billion. Now, infrastructure development. Madam Speaker, this priority area includes both transport and energy infrastructure. During this financial 24-25, some of the following achievements were realized. Integrated transport infrastructure and services. Madam Speaker, the road network that is tarmacked now stands at 6,287.6 kilometers, representing about 30% of the national road network compared to 3,112 kilometers in financial 2010-11. With this improved road network, the travel time, for example, from Malaba to Kisoro by road reduced from 48 hours, 2 days, to about 10 hours. This will further improve with the completion of the Kampala-Jinja and Busegampigi Express highways. Uganda is now connected by tarmac roads at all its major international border points, from the South Sudan border, Kitgum, Nimule, Oraba, in Acholi and West Nile, to the southern border of Tanzania, Mutukula, Rwanda, Miramahi, Katuna, and Chanika, and the Congo border, Bunagana, and from the Kenya border, Wakaka, Malaba. The refurbishment and commissioning of the Mukono-Kampala meter gauge railway line. In addition, rehabilitation of the 375 kilometers of the Tororo to Gulu meter gauge railway will be completed by February 2026. Madam Speaker, next financial year, priority intervention will include completing the rehabilitation of Tororo Gulu meter gauge railway line, refurbishment of the Mukono Jinja meter gauge railway line, and construction of the standard gauge railway from Kampala to Malaba. Now, water transport. Madam Speaker, government has constructed and maintained a number of ferries providing essential services to connect isolated communities and facilitate access to markets. Government will continue to operate and maintain these ferries next financial year, in addition to continued development of Kasa Port, completing construction of 2 ferries for Bukungu, Kaberamaido, Kagwara, and the 2 ferries for Lake Bunyonyi. Air transport. Madam Speaker, since the revival of Uganda Airlines 5 years ago, by His Excellency the President, connectivity has improved within the continent, the Middle East, Asia, and the United Kingdom. The airline is now flying to 17 direct destinations, which has contributed to reduce travel time at more affordable costs. Madam Speaker, the competition brought about by the airline has forced other regional airlines to reduce the cost of their air tickets. For example, a return air ticket to Nairobi has stabilized at about $300 compared to $800 in 2019. Madam Speaker, the airline is supporting trade and tourism in addition to business air travel. The national airline is now the largest operator and has 24% market share of all air travel out of Entebbe Airport, up from 4% in 2019. Its revenue has increased to shillings 319 billion in financial 23-24 from 28 billion only in 1920. Madam Speaker, with the increased capitalization and acquisition of additional aircrafts, the airline will increase efficiency and travelers to and from Uganda will enjoy direct and cheaper travel to more international destinations. Madam Speaker, the upgrade, rehabilitation and expansion of Entebbe International Airport is nearly complete. The expanded airport has a new cargo facility and a new passenger terminal, among others. This is going to further improve the passenger experience and the trade and tourism. Madam Speaker, next financial year 2025-26, priority intervention will include: 1, additional capitalization of Uganda Airlines to acquire more aircrafts, to open up more routes for passenger and cargo transportation, handling capacity. 2, operationalization of Kabalega International Airport. 3, rehabilitation and upgrade of the existing strategic airports and aerodromes. Madam Speaker, I have provided 6.92 trillion next financial year 25-26 for integrated transport and infrastructure service, including roads, bridges, railways, water transport, and air transport. Now I turn to energy development. Madam Speaker, several milestones have been registered in the development of our energy infrastructure. These include: installed electricity generation capacity has now reached 2,051.6 megawatts. 2, the electricity transmission line network expanded by 874.8 kilometers to 5,140 kilometers. 3, access to electricity has increased to 6% from 57% in financial year 23-24 after connecting over 197,000 new customers. Following Uganda Electricity Distribution Company Limited takeover of distribution electricity, the cost of power has reduced by 14%, saving consumers shillings 250 billion annually. A tariff of $5 cents per kilowatt hour has been achieved for all extra large consumers of electricity, those consuming above 1.5 megawatts at off-peak. Madam Speaker, I have provided 1.4 trillion next financial year 25-26 to undertake the following priority interventions. 1, additional investment in UDCL to ensure affordable, efficient, and reliable distribution of electricity to consumers. 2, enhance access to electricity through implementation of the $638 million electricity access scale-up project, covering grid expansion, connectivity, and clean energy options for 1 million new electricity connections. Further, government will continue investing in priority transmission lines and substations, particularly to the industrial parks, growth centers, and other strategic manufacturing facilities like the clinker factory in Moroto, Karamoja, the fertilizer factory in Kampiringisa Mpigi, Simba cement factory in Imbarara, Western Uganda, Day by Farmer in Matuga, Wakiso district, and the coffee factory in Ntungamo, among others. Commence development of new power generation plants to meet growing demand. These include new hydropower plants at Ayago and Oriang in Nyoya district, and Kiba in Oyama district, the development of the nuclear rehabilitation of Kira Naruwari power plant, industrial development and manufacturing. Madam Speaker, With regard to industrial development and manufacturing, the following achievements have been registered. Government has operationalized 8 industrial parks, which include Namamve, Luzira, Bweyogerere, Mbale, Soroti, Kasese, Mbarara, and Jinja industrial parks. We have also supported the development of 3 private-owned industrial parks, which are Liorisheni in Kapeka, in Nakaseke district, MMP in Buikwe district, and Tiantang in Mukono. To date, a total of 628 companies, stroke industries, have been allotted land within the various industrial parks, 47% of which are in manufacturing. Out of all the companies allocated land, 307 are fully operational, 105 are undertaking construction, and 122 have commenced preparatory activities. The parks have attracted a total capital investment of US dollars 4.5 billion and created 181,403 jobs. Madam Speaker, several industrial parks have become centers of innovation, hosting firms that have introduced new technologies and products, such as a single HIV-P, Quality Chemicals Limited, GIS Transformers, Orion Electricals, Plastic to Fabric Recycling, Fay Long Investment Limited, locally manufactured electric vehicles, Kira Motors, the first powder-free surgical gloves, East African medical vitals, and import substitution products like fridges, transformers, toiletries, textiles, ceramics, television, and blankets. Government has supported industrialization by investing in strategic manufacturing facilities through Uganda Development Corporation with a total investment of 1.2 trillion. Madam Speaker, next financial year, I have provided 308.9 billion to further support infrastructure development in industrial parks, including roads, waste management, drainage, utilities, and shillings 187 billion for capitalization of UDC. Security, good governance, and the rule of law. Madam Speaker, security, good governance, and the rule of law are the foundation for socio-economic transformation. Everybody knows that. During this financial year, the following achievements were registered. 1, strengthened and modernized the security infrastructure to protect Ugandans, investors, and our visitors from any security threats. We have invested in security apparatus, more sophisticated intelligence network, and border control mechanism. 2, provided adequate funds to security institutions, including the military, police, prison, and intelligence agencies, for operations and improving capacity and welfare of men and women in uniform. 3, promoted regional and international relations, including playing a strategic role in the peace process in Somalia, South Sudan, the DRC, and Equatorial Guinea. Registered a 4.1% decrease in the volume of crime from 274 cases reported in 2023 to 218,715 cases in 2024, and a subsequent decline in crime rate from 516 to 476 per 1,000 persons. Commenced mass enrollment of Ugandans on 17th May 2025 to acquire national identity cards with a target of registering 17.2 million unregistered persons and renewing 15.8 million expired cards. Apart from securing elections and aiding our national security, the national ID has contributed to improved efficiency in accessing public services, broadened financial inclusion, eased travel within the East African community, and stamped out fraud arising from identification. Improved efficiency in the delivery of citizenship and immigration control services. The average turnaround time for processing of honorary passports has reduced to 4 from 14 days. Beverly. Government has started to roll out the intelligent transport monitoring system to improve security. To date, 26,818 vehicles and 62,512 motorcycles have been registered. In addition, government has invested in security cameras to improve tracking of crime in Greater Kampala metropolitan area on major highways. Sorry. Government has also started implementing regulations for speed limits using the express penalty system to reduce fatalities on roads. This is the way to go. If there is any problem with the rates, they will be reviewed and the penalty will stay to save the lives of Ugandans. Uganda prisons is transforming from a consumptive to a productive force. This has contributed to food security and reduced the budget required to look after inmates. In addition, the prison service contributed to growth of local textile industry through increased production of cotton. This financial year, the service produced 1,733 metric tons of maize seed, 485 kilograms of cotton to the local textile industries, and 12,290 metric tons of grain to contribute to prisoners' feeding requirements. Government was effectively represented in courts, tribunals, and commissions. Out of 393 cases concluded, government won 285, which is 72.5%, and saved shillings 548 billion that would have otherwise been paid as costs. Government implemented the NRA manifesto commitment on cattle compensation in the Acholi, Rango, and Teso sub-regions. Since financial year 2021-22, a total of shillings 142.9 billion has been paid to 53,592 claimants. I have provided shillings 80 billion next financial year to pay the remaining claimants. In addition, I have provided 15 billion for ex gratia Akasimo to the Ruero war victims. Madam Speaker, next financial year, I have provided shillings 9.9 trillion for 1, consolidating Uganda's security through continued modernization and professionalization of the security agencies. 2, improving the welfare of the security forces. 3, undertaking general elections in 2026, which are just around the corner. Increasing access to justice, law and order services. And 5, strengthening immigration and border security. Madam Speaker, government is stepping up the fight against corruption. We are automating all government processes to reduce human interaction and ensure traceability. investing in more performance and forensic audits, and enforcing accountability. I think I should read this paragraph. Let me read it. Madam Speaker, it is stepping up the fight against corruption. We are automating all government processes to reduce human interaction and ensure traceability, investing in more performance and forensic audits, and enforcing accountability. Administration of Justice. Madam Speaker, the following achievements were registered. The judiciary has significantly scaled up alternative dispute resolution mechanisms like mediation, plea bargaining, and small claims procedures, reducing justice costs and speeding up dispute resolution. For example, in 2024, a total of 3,391 cases were resolved through mediation. In addition, plea bargaining achieved a success rate of 87%. Completed the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, Rukungiri High Court, and Budaka and the Patongo Magistrates Courts, 5 new High Courts, court circuits in Wakiso, Entebbe, Kumi, Rugazi, Patongo, and 10 magistrates courts were operationalized, bringing the total to 268 courts countrywide. Construction is ongoing of regional appeal courts in Gulu and Mbarara, Soroti and Tororo High Courts, and Karenga Magistrate Court. This will further reduce travel distances for justice. 3. There is increased use of technology in delivery of justice. The electronic court case management system is now operational in 20 courts, boosting filing rates by 20.6%. Additionally, 20 courts have video conferencing systems enabling online case handling, which has improved efficiency. Madam Speaker, I have provided 602.7 billion shillings next financial year under the Administration of Justice program for strengthening alternative dispute resolution, increased use of technology in justice delivery, building more courts to improve access to justice, and increasing the civil jurisdiction of magistrates courts. Legislation and oversight. Madam Speaker, the legislature has registered several achievements during financial 24-25. Parliament held 73 sittings and passed 35 bills, concluded 3 petitions, passed 45 resolutions, adopted 53 reports. Most importantly, the turnaround time for enactment of legislation has reduced significantly. I commend you, Right Honorable Speaker, for this tremendous achievement. Madam Speaker, I have provided a total of 1.03 trillion next financial year for legislative processes, public engagements, and outreach, providing parliamentary oversight of democracy and governance, and ensuring accountability for public funds and implementation of public programs. Management of natural disaster. Madam Speaker, to protect Ugandans from disaster, this financial year, government invested 200.3 billion in early warning systems, mitigation interventions, and the provision of relief items to affected households and communities in the disaster-prone areas. Madam Speaker, next financial year, I have provided shillings to 20.7 billion plus a contingency fund of 169 billion to support disaster management. I have also provided 12.4 billion for improving meteorological services and early warning systems to improve efficiency and accuracy of weather forecasting for agriculture, air travel, and climate change tracking. Elimination of domestic arrears. Madam Speaker, government has put in place a strategy to eliminate domestic arrears in 3 financial years, starting financial year 25-26. Payment of domestic arrears will prioritize suppliers of goods and services, contractors, and compensations for land and to war claimants. Madam Speaker, I have increased the allocation for domestic arrears to shillings 1.4 trillion from 200 billion provided this financial year. To prevent accumulation of new arrears, starting next financial year, my ministry shall implement the following measures, and they are not easy measures. 1, enforcement of the commitment control system. 2, sanctioning accounting officers responsible for creation of any arrears. 3, providing and ring-fencing adequate counterpart funding for multi-year projects. I am about to close. Financing the budget for the financial year. Resource envelope. Madam Speaker, the total resource envelope for financial year 25-26 amounts to 72 trillion 376 billion 481 million 481 million 502,103 shillings. This is detailed as follows. Domestic revenue amounting to shilling 37.55 trillion, of which 33.7 from 33.94 trillion will be tax revenue, shillings 3.28 trillion non-tax revenue, and shillings 328.6 billion local government revenue. Domestic borrowing, shillings 11.38 trillion, domestic financing maturing domestic debt 10.30 trillion, grants and external borrowing for general budget financing is 2.08 trillion, external financing for projects is 11.33 trillion, of which 2.8 trillion are grants. Expenditure allocations. Madam Speaker, the following resources have been allocated as follows. Wages and salaries, 8.57 trillion. Non-wage recurrent expenditure, shillings 28.33 trillion, which also includes operational funds for institutions, financing for all wealth creation funds, financing for science and technology investment, grants for education and health, medicines, maintenance of infrastructure, and interest payments, among others. 3, development expenditure, 18.24 trillion. 4, domestic debt for refinancing, shillings 10.03 trillion. 5, debt amortization, 4.98 trillion. 6, domestic debt repayment to Bank of Uganda, 493 billion. 7, domestic arrears, 1.4 trillion. 8, local government expenditure from own revenue, shillings 328.6 billion. Madam Speaker, I have attached the details of the resource envelope and expenditure allocations by vote for financial year 25-26 as annexes 2 and 3. The financing strategy for financial year 25-26, Madam Speaker, Below is the financing strategy for next financial year. 1. Improving tax administration to raise an additional shillings 1.89 trillion. 2. Introduction of new tax measures to increase domestic revenue by shillings 538.6 billion. 3. Rationalizing tax exemptions to eliminate inefficient ones that do not support industrial policy. 4. Repurposing resources in the budget for financial 24-25 from less productive to high impact areas in line with the 10-fold growth strategy. 5. Mobilizing more concessional financing from international financing institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, Badea ECT. 6. Mobilizing development finance from other innovative sources, including public-private partnerships, climate finance, private equity, sukuk bonds, panda bonds, diaspora bonds. Tax for financial year 25-26. Madam Speaker, an additional revenue of shillings 538.6 billion will be raised from new tax policy measures that were approved by Parliament. In addition to raising revenue, the measures will support the growth of businesses and the economy. The measures also include technical amendments to tax laws aimed at improving clarity and consistency, creating a fairer and a more predictable tax environment for businesses and taxpayers, and removing ambiguities that create loopholes leading to revenue leakage. These amendments are also intended to enhance tax administration, encourage voluntary compliance, and empower Uganda Revenue Authority to effectively enforce tax laws. Madam Speaker, I wish to present key highlights of the changes in tax laws. Income tax, exemption to start-up businesses. The NRM government has granted a 3-year income tax holiday for start-up businesses established by citizens after 1st July 2025. This is intended to support startups that struggle with high initial investment costs. The incentive is to foster innovation, encourage formalization of SMEs, enhance business survival, and promote employment. Exemption from capital gains tax on transactions. Government has granted an exemption from capital gains tax on transactions where an individual transfers assets to a company they have established but also under their control. This is a deliberate policy intervention aimed at encouraging formalization of businesses. Madam Speaker, currently many Ugandans operate businesses under their personal names, often as sole proprietors or informal entities. When these individuals seek to transition into more formal and structured corporate entities for purposes of growth, access to finance, strengthening governance, or succession planning, they face a capital gains tax liability simply for transferring their assets into a company they fully own. This tax burden has been removed. Income tax exemption for Bujagali hydropower project. Madam Speaker, government has granted an income tax exemption to Bujagali Energy Limited for 1 year up to 30th June 2026 in accordance with our contractual obligations. This is intended to mitigate a rise in electricity tariffs. Stamp duty. Removal of stamp duty on mortgages and agreements. Madam Speaker, government has removed stamp duty on mortgages and agreements. This reform is intended to lower the cost of debt for businesses and individuals. It will also remove the financial burden imposed on businesses and individuals when they enter into agreements. Tax Procedure Code, waiver of interest and penalty for voluntary payment of outstanding principal tax. Government has extended the waiver period of any interest and penalties outstanding as at 30th June 24, provided that the taxpayer pays the principal tax by 30th June 2026. This waiver is intended to provide relief to businesses and individuals to enable them to settle outstanding tax liabilities and resume normal operations. Value-added tax, reform of the penalty regime for non-compliance with IFRIS. Madam Speaker, we have implemented the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing system, IFRIS, to improve tax compliance and reduce tax evasion. However, concerns have been raised regarding the high penalties of shillings 6 million per invoice, regardless of the value of the transaction, which disproportionately burden taxpayers. To address this issue, the penalty structure has been amended so that the penalty for non-compliance will instead be twice the tax owed by the taxpayer. I urge taxpayers to embrace the IFRIS system as it helps the taxpayer to reduce lengthy and burdensome transactions with URA staff, audits, and penalties. It also promotes transparency and creates an even playing field. Excise duty, Madam Speaker. We have increased the taxes on cigarettes to discourage consumption, but also generate additional revenue. Excise duty on soft cap cigarettes has been increased to shillings 65,000 per 1,000 sticks from 55,000, and hinge lead cigarettes to shillings 90,000 per 1,000 sticks from 80,000. For those outside East African community, excise duty on soft cap cigarettes has been increased to shillings 150,000 per 1,000 sticks from shillings 75,000, and hinge lead cigarettes for 200,000 per 1,000 sticks from shillings 100,000. Madam Speaker, government has removed the excise duty rate of 30% or shillings 950 per liter, whichever is higher, on beer manufactured from barley that is grown and malted in Uganda, because it was redundant. Also, government has adjusted the excise duty on beer manufactured with local raw materials content of at least 75% by weight of its constituents, including water, to 30% or shillings 900 per liter from 30%, or 650 per liter, whichever is higher. This is to ensure that a manufacturer pays the same amount of tax whether using a specific rate or an ad valorem rate. Taxes on external trade. Introduction of an import declaration fee on imported items. Madam Speaker, I have imposed a small fee of 1% of the customs value on taxable items under the common external tariff. This measure seeks to align Uganda's tax policy with those of other East African community partner states where similar fees have been imposed. For instance, Kenya applies a 2% CIF charge. Establishment of an export levy on wheat bran, cotton cake, and maize bran. Madam Speaker, government has imposed an export levy of US dollars 10 per metric ton of wheat bran, cotton cake, or maize bran to encourage local value addition, particularly in the production of animal feeds. Currently, these products are exported as raw materials in the region, where value is added and imported into Uganda as finished goods. Therefore, this measure will encourage value addition and create jobs for our children. Taxes and on textiles. Madam Speaker, the government has listened to our traders dealing in imported taxes for value addition as they requested the import duty on imported fabric has been reduced. Effective 1st July 2025, the duty will be US dollars 2 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher, down from 3 US dollars per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher. In addition, the import duty on garments has been reduced to US dollars 2.5 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher, from US dollar 3.5 per kilogram or 35%, whichever is higher. Public debt. Madam Speaker, the stock of public debt is projected at US dollar 31.5 billion, equivalent to shillings 116 trillion by the end of June 2025. Of this, external debt accounts for US dollars 15.49 billion, equivalent to shillings 56.3 trillion, and domestic debt US dollars 16 billion, equivalent to 59.77 trillion. As a ratio of GDP, our public debt is estimated at 51.26%, which is consistent with the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Madam Speaker, Uganda's debt is sustainable and is projected to remain so in the medium to the long term. The debt has financed investments that support private sector growth by providing requisite infrastructure. Over the last 10 years, the areas which public debt has financed, including integrated transport infrastructure, 29.3%, electricity infrastructure, including power generation plants and transmission lines, 27.6%, water for production and consumption, 11.5%, agro-industrialization, 5.1%, education and health, 5%, housing and urban development, 3%, and the development of industrial parks, 2%. To maintain public debt sustainability, government is implementing the following actions. 1, domestic revenue mobilization to increase revenue collection and reduce borrowing. 2, mobilization of more concessional financing from international financial institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, BADEA, etc. 3, implementation of saving initiative, where Ugandans will invest in government securities using mobile money. Now, I want to conclude. Madam Speaker, I know I have tired you. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. Can I repeat? Madam Speaker, in conclusion, Uganda's economy has taken off. When I did this thing, people started it. We know what we are doing, man. The economic fundamentals, GDP growth, price stability, currency stability, jobs, export, FDI receipts are in good shape and highly competitive regionally and globally. The economic fundamentals, GDP growth, price stability, currency stability, jobs, export FDI receipts are in good shape and are highly competitive regionally and globally. We have met the criteria for graduation from the category of low development countries. Poverty and inequality have just hold on. We have met the criteria for graduation from category of low LDCs. Poverty and inequality have reduced. Listen to this. Poverty and inequality have reduced significantly. Our deliberate onslaught on the subsistence economy has resulted in cutting the number of Ugandans working for only the stomach, kida kionka, to just 3 in every 10 homesteads. With our renewed commitment to fast-track full monetization of the economy and redirect resources towards agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral beneficiation, manufacturing, innovations by our scientists, and digital transformation, Uganda is indeed unstoppable. Unstoppable. Mwandibadde mukuba mu ngalo nammwe temumanyi. This budget, therefore, is for all Ugandans who are ready to create wealth. Fellow countrymen and women, take full advantage of the innumerable opportunities contained in this budget. Innumerable opportunities in this budget. To those still in the subsistence economy, the PDM and other wealth creation funds have been availed to support you to join the money economy in any of the 4 sectors: commercial agriculture, industry, services, or ICT. To the private sector, the 10-fold growth strategy presents many opportunities. Demand for household services and consumables is going to increase exponentially in the next 15 years on account of rising household incomes. The increase in GDP represents larger demand for intermediate goods and services among businesses. With a larger economy, government revenue will increase, and so will the size of government contracts to the private sector. To the investors and our partners in development, this budget guarantees peace, security, easy taxes, and a tolerable administration of justice. In Uganda, we protect private property, enforce contracts, and pay our debts. This budget offers opportunities to acquire more skills, access finance, innovate and develop new and better products. The budget also contains huge investments in sports, particularly to upgrade the facilities in preparation for CHAN and AFCON 27. To those in the creative industry, the NRM government has fulfilled its promise to provide you with a revolving fund, acquire a home for you, and enact a copyright law to protect your intellectual property. This is just the beginning of what we intend to do to open doors for you to escape unemployment and manipulation by self-interested individuals and groups. Take full advantage of the opportunities to make money and live a productive life. Take full advantage of the opportunities to make money and live a productive life. To the women and mothers of our nation, the budget has provided funds to improve your health, to ensure that your children are born in safe hands, are immunized, sleep under a mosquito net, drink clean water, safe water, and are educated in a nearby school for free. The budget has also allocated billions of support to your businesses. However, small to graduate, let me repeat this. The increase in GDP represents a larger demand for intermediate goods and services among businesses. With a larger economy, government revenue will increase. Money is coming, and so with the size of government contracts to private sector. To the investor and our partners in development, this budget guarantees peace and security, ease the taxes, and the tolerable administration of justice. In Uganda, we protect private property, enforce contracts, and repay our debts. To the youth, this budget offers opportunities to acquire more skills, access finance, innovate and develop new and better products. The budget also contains huge investments in sports, particularly to upgrade the facilities in preparation for CHAN and AFCON 27. To those in the creative industry, the NRM government has fulfilled its promise to provide you with the revolving fund, acquire a home for you, and enact a corporate law to protect your intellectual property. This is just the beginning of what we intend to do to open doors for you to escape unemployment and manipulation by self-interested individuals and groups. Take full advantage of the opportunities to make money and live a productive life. Make money. To the women and mothers of this nation, the budget has provided funds to improve your health, to ensure that your children are born in safe hands, are immunized, sleep under a mosquito net, drink clean water, safe water, and are educated in a nearby school for free. The budget has also allocated billions to support your businesses, however small, to graduate into sustainable businesses. To the elderly, persons with a disability, and other vulnerable persons, wherever you are in this country, the budget offers several social safety nets, not only to shield you from poverty, but also to ensure that you can be productive and begin to live a decent life. To our cultural leaders, this budget has fulfilled His Excellency the President's promise of enhancing government support for your operations. For the religious leaders, the budget has provided funding to support functions of Interreligious Council. I now appeal to you to support mobilization of people for wealth creation and implementation of government programs. To the gallant men and women in uniform who are serving in ULPDF, in the Uganda police, in the Uganda prisons, and the intelligence services, this budget contains money to improve your welfare and capabilities. Continue to serve your country and keep it as safe as you have always done. Happy belated Heroes Day. I have adequately provided resources to ensure elections go on successfully by ensuring peace, security, law and order, and availability of all required equipment and documents. As we go about the electoral process, I implore all political actors to observe peaceful engagement and avoid distracting wealth creators. Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, because people are tired, but it was inevitable. I could not have abridged this speech. Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, I would like to reiterate His Excellency President's call to all Ugandans to embrace wealth creation. We have a wonderful country. Those of you who have not traveled around the world, you don't know. But we know Uganda is God, when He was creating Uganda, I don't know what our ancestors had done. I think they did very good things. We have got good weather. You think I could have put on a suit here in some other places? We have rainfall, although we are making a problem by cutting trees. You can grow any type of food here. You can eat whatever you want to eat here in Uganda. And we continue crying and poverty. Government has given you all the money that you should take to take in your enterprises. Please, you excuse me to quarrel when I come to this when I talk, wanting to emphasize of the beauty of this country, I become emotional. Will you excuse me? No wars, systems are around. If you are somebody has done something wrong to you, the courts, the chief is here. Hey. And we want to live to 100 years. Have you heard? Me, I'm aiming with my president 100 years. Have you heard? I am 82 now. You can see. Okay, Madam Speaker, as I step off this podium, I would like to reiterate His Excellency the President's call to all Ugandans to embrace wealth creation, but also embrace what I've said. I dedicate this budget to all the wealth creators, particularly the youth and women. Madam Speaker, I humbly beg to move.